Trump News. Trump's New York fraud case continues. The verdict of the New York Supreme Court in the fraud trial of former President Donald Trump will demonstrate the existence and incredibly sluggish pace of American justice. Indeed, the ruling of Justice Arthur Engoron will demonstrate that the rule of law applies to all. Another thing that the case is about to reveal is how necessary delays will cause Trump to avoid repercussions until after the election. As a legal whiz, Trump will try to clog the system's wheels in the vain belief that his victory will rescue him. It is within Trump's legal rights to dispute the justice's decision to fairly handle his case. Review on appeal is essential, yet it may take a considerable amount of time. Presented below is the process. Donald Trump has 30 days from the date of the verdict against him to file an appeal. According to statute, on the other hand, Trump has 30 days to request that Engoron reevaluate his decision. You may be able to file a string of such motions in some courts. They halt the passage of time for the appeal deadline. This pre-appeal procedure might drag on for months if not years if you hire a competent counsel. They begin by requesting more time to file their briefs, which leads to the filing of a motion. They actively push the opposing side's attorneys to request additional time. They want to know if they can submit more briefs while going through the motions. They plod along. It doesn't matter how long the trial has been over. They still want to summon witnesses. Assuming fresh knowledge, they may reopen attacks on the judge, witnesses, or government to put out all these tiny fires started under his ruling. A judge must be incredibly quick on his feet, months or even years later. The appeal is finally filed. After that, the cycle repeats again. Deadline extension motions are falling like snowflakes. It is necessary to request transcripts. Months may pass while they are prepared. Schedules for briefings will be a point of contention. We will submit requests for extensions. Another popular strategy is to promise to mediate when the deadlines become more apparent. The mediation can inform the pursuit of further deadline extensions. At last, the truth will come out. The negotiations have failed. Despite everyone's best efforts, there will be a new deadline, briefing, and, after some rescheduling efforts, oral argument before New York's appellate division. Then, the court will take a long time, often years, to write up its ruling. Trump has threatened to request a reevaluation by the full court if he is dissatisfied. After losing his appeal to the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, he recently done that. If handled routinely, briefing on this matter and obtaining a ruling can consume more months. Suppose Trump is still unsuccessful. Regrettably, the case is far from resolved. After that, Trump has the option to ask the New York Court of Appeals to review the matter. It takes longer for this to end. Everything goes back to square one if the Supreme Court decides to review the matter. For the sake of argument, let's imagine he loses again and the United States Supreme Court eventually decides not to consider the case. 56 seconds, according to Thomas G. Malkosher. Donald Trump just had the most eventful 24 hours of his troubled legal career. Ex-judge and author. The verdict of the New York Supreme Court in the fraud trial of former President Donald Trump will demonstrate the existence and incredibly sluggish pace of American justice. Indeed, the ruling of Justice Arthur Engoron will demonstrate that the rule of law applies to all. Another thing that the case is about to reveal is how necessary delays will cause Trump to avoid repercussions until after the election. As a legal whiz, Trump will try to clog the system's wheels in the vain belief that his victory will rescue him. Last but not least, Trump's hens will come home to roost after the 2024 election, probably after the following 4-year presidential term. After that, he and his groups will declare bankruptcy. As a fresh case gets underway, Trump tries to stave off the full brunt of his problems until he dies or becomes irrelevant, which may be in his late 80s or early 90s. Courts must cease their routine operations if this is to cease. Courts have the power to strictly regulate the timing and content of lawsuits. They have the power to decide what and when. They routinely assume delays as inevitable since they let attorneys handle the preliminary work. Not all of Trump's cases are rotting at the core. Trump and similar litigants will continue to win even when they lose as long as the courts do not improve their case management practices.